Hey guys, welcome to the Lean to the Left podcast and our special pre-election episode of the Dixie Dems, which is being recorded on Halloween. And guess what? I live at the corner of Pumpkin Patch and Scarecrow Way. So that's where this thing has been recorded. With me are Arthur Hill, Vice Chair of the Brunswick County, North Carolina Democratic Party, and Robert Thompson, an outspoken podcaster from Georgia, who's watched his state turn battleground purple over the past several election cycles. I'm a Maryland transplanted into South Carolina, and besides hosting this podcast, I'm also the founder of the leantotheleft.net blog. And I just published an updated version of Hijacked Nation, a book about the Trump presidency, with my co-author, C.J. Waldron, and it's now for sale online. I'll tell you more about that later. Now, today, though, we're going to focus on the election, and Arthur and Robert will be talking about North Carolina and Georgia, respectively, which are among the key battleground states that will help determine the winner. Here in South Carolina, which is largely red, and Democrats don't even have a candidate in many races, the state is expected to go to Trump. But I have to say that Dems are making inroads here. Now, the polls are showing that the race is neck and neck, which doesn't feel right to me. I think Harris will win the popular vote, but the Electoral College could end up giving the presidency to Trump. So let's open up with you, Arthur. What do you got? What are your thoughts about North Carolina as Election Day approaches?
We've pretty much got ourselves locked into a pretty competitive race. The number of Democrats, registered Democrats, and registered Republicans in North Carolina across the state are about the same. However, a couple of interesting notes. Although the polls show just about every statewide race in North Carolina to be roughly the same, 50-50, within the margin of error, one of the encouraging facts, if you're a Democrat, is that since 2020, since the last time we had a presidential election, about 480,000 people have moved into the state of North Carolina. It's one of the fastest growing states in the country. And of those, more than 400,000 are registered Democrats. So there appears to be an interesting switch in the electorate in terms of party affiliation. But a large amount is still going to depend on the number of affiliated people and which direction they're leaning in.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's been a lot of attention paid to the gubernatorial race with Mark Robinson. Latest with him is he's sued CNN for the story that they ran about him and his ventures in the porn world. And now he seems to be backing off a little bit. The revelation did some real damage to his campaign, virtually drying up all his sources of funding and also drying up his support because of all the races, the statewide races in the state right now. The gubernatorial race is right now showing to be about a runaway for Josh Stein, the Democratic candidate, and who's about 16 points ahead of Robinson at this point. So there's some interesting things. There's some interesting things going on. Lots of early voting going on. More Republicans than Democrats by large, but that was to be expected since Trump and the Republicans are encouraging Republicans to get out early, and a large number of Democrats who probably will vote, likely voters, haven't voted yet. So they're either going to be voting this weekend or they're going to vote on Election Day. And one of the interesting things about the technology this time around, and I don't know whether the same thing is true in Georgia and South Carolina, but in North Carolina, you can go on the State Board of Elections page and there's a little UR code there that you can aim at, and it'll tell you number one, what all the voting locations are for early voting, because you can vote in any of them. And it'll also tell you how long you have to wait in line. And I don't know whether that's going on in other states or whether that's just unique to North Carolina, but we took advantage of that. And we got there at about the second or third day early voting, my wife and I, and we voted, and we only had to wait in line about 5 minutes.
Wow, that's some.
Other locations, you have 2.5 hours. So that was a really cool addition. And I hope that's adopted nationally, because I think that would be a real good idea.
Absolutely. I know here in South Carolina, my wife and I went the first day of early voting. And unlike previous times, it was at a library about just a couple miles from my house. And unlike previous times when we could just walk in and vote with virtually no line, this time there was a huge line, and it was wrapped all the way around the building, and it was wrapped all the way into the back of a building next door, which was a rec center.
Mm.
And the wait on that day was over 2 hours.
Mm.
And so we waited, that was a Monday, and we waited until Wednesday and went back, and the line was still very long. I had seen online, however, that another polling place just a couple of miles further away from our house, the line was much shorter. So we went there and we voted there, and we still waited over a half an hour to get in. So early voting here in our area of South Carolina was really popular, and it still is, still going on. And I can't tell you if it was, we don't register by party here, so it's difficult to tell whether they were more Democrats or Republicans. But I do know that on a local, it's called, I don't know, neighborhood or something like that, people were all talking about how long it took them to vote. And then the conversation naturally went into preferences, even though on that particular app, you're not supposed to talk politics. People did. And it seemed to me that there were about as many left-leaning people commenting as there were Trump people. And that is really surprising here in South Carolina. And the other observation I have is that you don't see hardly any Trump signs or bumper stickers at all.
Mm.
You don't see that many Harris signs or bumper stickers either. But my neighbor across the street has a Harris sign out in her front yard. I have a flag and a sign, and my sign the other day was stolen. And somebody walked right up to the front of my house and took my sign. And so I went on that app and posted, don't know whether it was pro-Trump people that are scared of losing or if it was pro-Harris people that are desperately in need of a sign. And, and then I got a whole bunch of Trumpers came back and made snide remarks, and I argued with them on that for a while.
I tell you,
Yeah,
the
I mean,
campaign,
a couple.
I don't know about your states, but the Harris campaign really got religion with signs. We got a shipment just for Brunswick County. We got a shipment of 1,000 Harris signs about 5 days ago. We're scrambling just to get them distributed.
Wow, that's really something. Because you were all worried because you had spent a bunch of money on what? Biden signs.
Yeah, that's right. We did. We bought 1,000 Biden Harris signs. We got slip covers to put on top of them, though, and sold them all. Made some money.
Good for you.
Yeah, yeah. I was going
Oh
to say
man.
about the wait times. It seems in Georgia that it was each county. So here in DeKalb County, and I've seen it in Cobb County, here in Metro Atlanta, it's tied to how the county maintains several other services, like even the trash service. But they actually had a real-time ticker of the wait times for early voting. So you could actually go in there and see, wait a minute. I even showed it to a friend of ours, or two friends. And I said, they said, we're going to go vote today. And I said, well, check the time. And they actually used it to go and save some time. We actually absentee voted. Georgia, you do not have to have a reason. It's been like this forever. And it's so convenient. They mail you the ballot. You can do all your research at home. We had some very interesting ballot measures here that were interestingly worded. So you actually got to research those instead of just standing in the ballot box and just, what the hell is this thing? And instead of having to wait in line, you can mail it back in if you want, but our postal service will leave that there. But you have the drop boxes that are actually at the early voting places. So I was able to skip the line, show them the ballot, and just drop it in the box. A huge time saver.
Let's hope nobody sets those things on fire like they did
I was
in
going to say, yeah, exactly.
So Georgia Republicans, now that you say that, when
Yeah.
they claimed that there was widespread voter fraud, those ballot boxes used to be outside the library, for example. In one of the cases, they have now since been moved inside the
Okay.
library, and they have to be accessed during polling hours, so
Okay.
that there's a chaperone for the ballot boxes. So
Okay.
for better or for worse, it is what it is. But I will say, because I know that you guys are of a different generation than I, there is another rule in Georgia. If you are over the age of 75, you also get to skip the line. And one of the days the line was quite long, and the officer came out and just waved and said, "Is anybody out here over the age of 75?" And
Wow.
one of the people said, "I am, but I'm still waiting in line." So he actually chose not to skip the line.
No
That
So I
kidding.
thought that was,
It
good.
was, I guess it was just part of the experience that he wanted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
We,
cool.
we have people can vote in their car if they're handicapped or restricted in any kind of way. Do you all have that?
Not that I know of.
not that, but
I
I
think
do want
so.
to say, because I had a job a number of years ago that took me up to Canada a good bit. And it's very interesting to compare, because I was there, I think, for one or two elections. You can vote in shopping malls in Canada.
Wow.
And on the weekends, they don't do this strange voting thing that we do here.
Uh-huh.
And also that we have this technology to tell people how long you can wait in line. And we have the technology that you can go to an early voting place and they can give you a different ballot. But yet on election day, you have to go to your own polling place.
Yeah.
I think as the next couple of elections come forward, that's probably going to change to make that a little more flexible,
Yeah.
hopefully, because the technology's there, obviously.
Yeah. You've had some shenanigans going on in Georgia, right? With the people that run the election boards and all that.
Yeah, and before I get back to that, we have had some cases of stealing signs as well. So I don't know what, in smaller towns, I have seen some cases where the police have gotten involved and prosecuted people. If you're on private property and you're stealing, that's
Yeah,
a misdemeanor.
I have security cameras, and I checked the footage. I couldn't find any footage showing the culprit. And I was surprised, frankly, that they didn't take my flag, which is a lot bigger and more pronounced than the sign was. But I got another sign and put it out. So screw them.
Yeah, and that's usually what the campaigns end up doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of flag you
But
got?
I went online and I got a Harris Walls flag.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was pretty thin. It's not real high quality, but it was only like $10. And yeah, I have it outside hanging on my flagpole.
I'll bet you that Robert was all excited about the election in Georgia because he had volunteered to go down and help count votes by hand. That true?
Yeah. So getting back to Bob's other comment there,
Mhm.
we had an election board here, and I think it was 5 of them, and 3 of them were handpicked by Trump. And one of them, Janelle King, I'm going to call her name out again. She is a Republican Black woman, and
Mhm. Oh.
I don't know what gets her up every morning and why she wants to go stump for Republicans every day, but bless her heart. But she was one of them
Yeah.
that sat on this board and claimed that. And one of them, as I remember, the rule was so stupid. Literally, you'd have 2 or 3 people sitting at a table next to each other, and they would all count like 50 votes at a time. They would count them, and they would all have to agree to the same number and then move on
Yeah.
before anything else would happen.
Hmm.
And like, really? And
Wow.
this is the kind of shenanigans they were trying to pull. And of course, the courts were like, we're not doing this.
Right.
This is not, the state has spent all this money on technology. Of course, the Republicans are just trying to stall and
Sure.
bullshit. But so far, and even Raffensperger is still he's Republican. You got Gabe Sterling here and all that. They're saying we're still moving forward, but Lord only knows what's going to happen Tuesday and Wednesday and next week, because
Yeah.
they're going to pull something else out of the rabbit hat.
I'm sure they will. Yeah. So where do you guys see things standing? The polls are so close, according to everything I've been reading. Even today, some new stuff came out that basically said that the thing is tied, and that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It scares me because the website 538, and I think ABC News ended up buying that website.
Yeah.
And I was going back to history of the last presidential election. Biden was killing Trump in the polls 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the difference now is that we have a Black woman running for president.
Yeah.
And the other thing that scares me about this is Stacey Abrams here in Georgia running against Kemp. and you had the campaign getting Obama out there talking to the male voters. I think that this sentiment is coming from. They may not be saying it, but they're talking amongst locker room talk or whatever. It scares me because the polls are neck. And then back to Arthur on this in North Carolina, how do you explain Robinson polling so horribly, but Trump neck and neck? I don't understand it.
Because two things. First of all, the state voters in North Carolina have a reputation for splitting their tickets. And so a lot of people who are supporting Trump are not going to support Robinson. And in fact, I heard that a lot of the reasons why Stein is so far ahead in the polls is because of all the Republicans that are going to vote for him that would have voted for Robinson until shit hit the fan. But now they're going to vote for Stein, but they're still going to vote for Trump. So I think that it's almost an even match. They're saying that 16% of registered Republicans are going to switch their votes to Stein, and Stein's about 16 points ahead. That seems to be the way it's shaping up.
It boggles my mind that this man he clearly does not walk on water. He had his own porn scandal.
Yeah.
He tried to get in a garbage truck this week and couldn't even find his way in the freaking garbage truck. He couldn't drive it. He was in the passenger seat.
What was that all about?
Because it started with the Puerto Rican trash thing, and then
calling Puerto Rico trash pit or whatever he called it. And so he decided that the thing to do was to put a Trump sign on a garbage truck and ride around in the garbage truck. And he had on this weird orange vest thing that looked like a crossing guard uniform, and he wore that.
It was a garbage employee's safety vest.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah.
He went to a rally. He wore that as frickin' rally, right?
He did.
That was ridiculous. What an idiot.
Not the Madison Square Garden rally, but a later one.
Another one.
There was also the unforced error by Biden, where he was, and I'm sure what he came out saying was not what he had in mind to say. Absolutely certain, but it came out wrong.
Right.
Well, it goes back to, and Trump is Trump, and he's held to this low standard. And then you've got Kamala Harris that has to literally walk on water every day, and Obama said it as well. He said, just because I'm a black man or a black woman, I'm immediately held to a completely different standard. And I don't know how we change that, but it's insane.
Michelle Obama said the same thing. By the way, that's got to be the speech of the season, was the speech that Michelle Obama gave. I guess she was in Michigan a couple of days ago with Kamala, and it was just an amazing speech. And anybody who's listening to this podcast who has not heard that speech needs to listen to it, because it was such a strong message to men, not just black men, but just men, about how this abortion issue has affected women, and not only physically, but emotionally and mentally, and what it means, and how badly women need men's support to get rid of this terrible situation with abortion that came in the Supreme Court Hobbs case. And it's an emotional, powerful speech. And I commend it to everybody. Go find it on YouTube or wherever it is and listen to it. It's about a 10 or 15 minute speech, and it's just outstanding.
It's easy to find on YouTube. I found it there. It's easy to find there. Yeah.
It's a wonderful speech.
Yeah.
And that is the shirt that I drug out of the closet. I was looking for something to put on for the episode today. And this shirt is a couple of years old, but it goes back to, and on Halloween, let's remember Trump's presidency. Let's remember when the immigrants were coming across the southern border, a la Nazi Germany, being separated from their mothers, these children going into camps. And the shirt says, make sure I read it right, children in cages have heartbeats too. And so this is a two-pronged thing.
That's a great shirt.
It is a great shirt.
Yeah. And you've got the immigration issue, and then you've got the same people on the other side forcing women into pregnancies that they may not want because of the heartbeat bills and all these other things that were happening around that same time.
Yeah.
I'm literally getting chill bumps. I can't have children. I don't have kids, but it's literally what Arthur was just saying, that hopefully this has finally changed some minds out there. Because
Well,
if it hasn't, then we're doomed on Tuesday.
I'm
I,
hoping that the female vote puts Harris over the top. I cannot imagine any sane woman that would vote for Donald Trump under these circumstances. You do see women at his rallies, and some of them are dumber than anyway. You do see them there, and you got to wonder what are they. At the Pennsylvania rally where he was, quote, shot, close quote, there was a woman that I saw interviewed, I think it was ABC News, and she said, I just love coming to Trump rallies. They make me feel so good. What? What?
yes.
Really? Is that why people leave? Is that why people leave half an hour into the thing?
I was going to say, Bobby, you were asking me what I was doing. I was like, I had to change it to Fox News, and he was in New Mexico, and they had a person at the rally fell out, and Trump stopped speaking. He just stood there and did his whole swaying and dancing thing. And there were people behind him that put their hands up, like they were trying to put their hands on him to pray for him. And I'm like, maybe they're trying to go to the rally to die, or they get sick or fall out. This is the weirdest thing. Or have these become some sort of weird, demented religious experience thing?
I don't know. How about when he was dancing the other day for what, 25 or 30 minutes? He just swayed around on the podium, on the stage and pretend danced, and people just watched him. What?
Part of the problem is with these rallies, and it's even true to a certain extent with the Democrats. It's like C-SPAN. You get one camera point of view, boom, pointing at the podium, and that's about it. I mean, they ought to start. I think part of the reason why Trump did that 25-minute dance routine is because it wasn't the only reason, but I think it started because somebody passed out or fainted or something in the crowd, and so they had to bring in the EMS people, and they had to take care of all that
Oh,
stuff.
is that what it was?
I think so. And then, but
Yeah.
you know that because, and the same thing happened with, and actually, there's a difference between the two candidates right there because Trump went into this mumbo jumbo dancing routine that lasted for about 25 minutes.
Right.
Same thing happened at a Harris rally
Yeah.
a couple of days later. Same thing happened. Somebody fainted in the crowd and she stopped and she said, wait a minute, hang on, there's somebody injured. Can we get somebody down here to help? And she was directing it and you knew what was going on. And she looked at him, she said, you okay? And then after she was through the speech, she went in the direction to where the person was just to make sure that this person was okay. And you don't get that with Trump, but you get it with the compassion and the empathy you get. You see the contrast there was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, guess so. I will have back to the Fox News thing. Fox News did cut away. So when the person was being attended to and Trump was stopping on the stage, they cut away and went to commercial. And guess who was in the commercial break? The My Pillow guy.
The My Pillow guy.
I'm like, where has he been? And he just pops up. Hey, he's selling pillows still.
He needs to sell pillows because I understand he's broke now. He's another one of these people. He's another one of these people that have been touched by Trump and basically screwed over.
Yeah.
I have no sympathy for him. What an idiot, my Lord. And then you got that Dr. Phil dude who he's still standing behind Trump podiums and all that stuff. My wife likes to watch Dr. Phil. I can't stand to have him on. I walk out of the room when he's on. I can't stand it.
I didn't know he was such a conservative guy until this campaign.
I didn't either. I was surprised. I really was when he came out in support of Trump. I really was surprised, but I wasn't surprised at the My Pillow guy though. I don't know why. Anyway, and it looks to me like Trump's already laying the groundwork for losing. He's claiming election fraud in Pennsylvania, for crying out loud. And he's got nothing to base that on. At least he says he does, but he hasn't come out with anything.
Oh, I think they got the lawyers already lined up and ready to go. I just hope the Democrats do as well.
Yeah, I do too.
And I'm sure they do. They're doing all this in the dark.
Yeah. It seems to me that in order for Harris to win the thing, she's got to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And for Trump to win, he's got to win Pennsylvania, Georgia, and North Carolina. Now, what are your predictions, Georgia? And what are your predictions, North Carolina? What do you think's going to happen?
Who's for?
Georgia, it feels like it's going to Harris when lots of people show up to vote, which they are. Georgia is setting early voting records. Over 3 million people have voted in Georgia, which is, it's a good thing, but it's surprising that election day is Tuesday and over 3 million people have voted. It feels good for Harris, but we also assumed that Hillary was going to win.
Yeah.
And then we got 4 years of Trump. You got to vote.
I'm feeling pretty comfortable about North Carolina too. I think the polls that have been done are unbalanced because what's been happening is like on the 538, if you do the averages of all the polls, the Republicans, and actually a pretty smart move, they decided they were going to do a bunch of polls on their own and work it so that Trump comes out ahead in the polls and then throw them into the averages and skew the averages toward Trump. So I think the polls are a little bit skewed right now. Also, I think the polls are underreporting a lot of young folks. And in North Carolina, that's going to be a big vote because one of the things the state party's been doing, the state Democrats have been doing for the last 2 years is really ginning up the youth vote, the young people vote. They've been on college campuses. They've been doing registration stuff. They got the young Democrats are a lot more vigorous than they used to be. So there's a lot of things that are going on and I believe that the younger voters are going to be much better represented this year. But they're being underreported as well, I think. And I'm like Robert, I'm feeling fairly optimistic about North Carolina, particularly since the polls had seemed to be a little bit skewed.
I was at the.
And one other thing I'll add before we move on from that, it also was interesting when I went up to North Carolina for a weekend or two. To me, North Carolina felt more blue than I expected it. And that was in a rural part. It was Western North Carolina near Cherokee over in that area. It felt like there were more signs, political signs per capita than I think anywhere else. It felt like there were more signs there than in Metro Atlanta.
Wow.
and they were not all Republican. There were a lot of blue signs up there. We'll see what that turns into. Another thing too with this, this news story was not on front page, but I think it's very important. The Republican canvassing was a shit show. So that you can find these stories out there that they were giving the canvassers, these were paid canvassers to go out and knock on doors for Republicans. They gave them an app and they said, go to these addresses. They had GPS tracking. And so about a week or two later, someone then put an app on top of that to hack it so that they could say that they went to these addresses, but they really didn't go there and they still got paid. You have someone else saying that they were hired by Elon Musk's PAC, which you know that Vladimir Putin is funneling money. That's going to come out in the next couple of months. But you have somebody go into that saying that I showed up to do a job and I didn't find out until they made me sign an NDA. I was actually working for Trump. So you've got these shenanigans on the Republican side, and they can't even come back and say that we clearly knocked on this many doors. That's not good for Republicans at all.
No, that's true. That's true. This is an isolated incident, I know that. But the other night, I had been invited to a local Democratic club to talk about my new book, Hijacked Nation, and also to discuss the Electoral College and the implications. And while I was there was a young man in the audience that I noticed who kept making eye contact. And the other day, I got an email from him, wanted to know could he talk to me. And he's coming over tomorrow to see if there's a way he can help me with my podcast. He's very interested in my Lean to the Left podcast. And the reason why I'm bringing him up is because he told me that he feels that most people his age, and he looked to be 20s, 22, something like that. He's a librarian assistant. He's got a degree in history. He told me that most people he knows his age are fed up with Republicans for sure. They distrust the Democrats in a lot of ways. And they're moving much, much more towards even socialism. And that surprised me. But I think it's a good omen that they're questioning what's going on and not falling for Trump and his macho man crap and all that stuff.
Mhm. So the Bernie
Yeah.
burn lives, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm anxious to get to know this guy a little bit more because I think he's a smart kid, and it surprises me that someone like him is really here in this state, which is so red.
Mm.
Anyway, all right. The other thing that's going on in our election here in South Carolina, it's so red that there are many offices that don't have Democratic candidates. And matter of fact, when we went to vote, our choices were president, vice president, Congress, and one state legislative race, I think it was, and then a couple of constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. And the Republicans had a big long list of candidates to choose from. Most were unopposed. And so in the congressional race here in the 7th congressional district, which includes Myrtle Beach, the Democrat is Mel Hyman. He's a guy who's run for this seat now. This is his third time. He's running against Russell Fry, a Trump loyalist, in his first term. But it's a real uphill fight, I think. I don't really think Mal has much of a chance. He's a good guy. He's certainly for helping the average person, and he wants to pay for increased health benefits and so on by increasing taxes on the wealthy. We'll see what happens, but I don't really think Mal's got much of a shot. And other than that, it's pretty quiet. You gotta, if you're not if you're not voting in the presidential race or voting for Congress and you're a Democrat, you don't have a lot to vote for.
We had a strange thing happen just in our neck of the state. Brunswick County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state. And the problem is that it's been pretty much, the development's been pretty much uncontrolled. And the county council's controlled by the developers and the real estate brokers and so on who've paid a lot of money to keep those guys in office. And so finally it reached a tipping point, I think, this year. And we're running a slate of candidates to for the county council. The county council has 5 commissioners on it, and we're running a slate of 3. And if they're elected, then we'll be in the majority. But it's amazing how well received these guys have been. And we think we have a real shot at getting at least 1 or 2 of them elected, if not all 3. But it's bipartisan. That's the
Right.
other interesting thing. There's a lot of Republicans who are crossing over to vote for these guys that we know about, and one of them had to get on the ballot as an independent because he registered too late, so he had to get 6,500 signatures on a petition to get put on the ballot, and he got it easily. And so we think what we learned from that is that there are and 2 years ago we had the same kind of ballot that you did, Bob.
Yeah.
It was pretty skinny as far as the Democratic side of the primary was concerned.
Hmm.
A lot of running unopposed in the general, but not this time. We got candidates for just about every office in the county, and I'm not saying they're going to win all of them, but some of them will. And we worked real hard on that. And I think if you come up with an issue that's local like that, micro local, and it appeals to people, they'll cut across party lines and support you.
Yeah.
That's the lesson we learned anyway.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about my new book. So if you guys have anything else before I do that.
I'm good, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay,
Yeah.
Robert, you got anything?
Just make sure you vote. I don't know
Okay.
what else
All
to
right.
say at this
Get the
point.
vote.
Okay. So anyway, my book, it's co-written with a guy named C.J. Waldron, Chris Waldron, who's a friend of mine. He's a historian. He's an English professor at a local college here and a very good writer. The book is a collection of essays from my leantoleft.net blog site and basically tells a story of the aftermath of the insurrection, the January 6, 2001 Trump-inspired insurrection, and takes us through the period from then until today, really. And so using these essays, it's a play-by-play, really, a virtual play-by-play of what's happened politically since then. And so it's called Hijack Nation, Donald Trump's Attack on America's Greatness. And it's really a sequel to the two-volume book by the same title that Chris and I did in 2020, which ended with the aftermath of the COVID-19 catastrophe. So we picked it up for this sequel with the insurrection and moved forward. So the book is available online. It's available at Amazon.com. It's also available at Barnes & Noble. And it's in paperback and hardcover. And there will also be a Kindle version that's available. So if you just go to leantotheleft.net/books, and the top entry is this new book. And there's also an entry there for the previous version, but it's the new one you want to take a look at. So I thank you guys for letting me do that commercial for my book.
Well, it's your podcast, so we have a choice.
Also, we get a royalty for letting you do that, right?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. I'm happy to give you guys a royalty. That's if I get one. The last book I didn't make much money on, but we'll see what happens with this one. I'm pretty encouraged with it. Anyway, I thank you guys. Is there anything else we need to talk about before we sign off? We'll be back right after the election to do a recap as to what happened, and you guys can compare what we said this time to what really happened.
Yeah, I'm hoping we have good news.
I do too.
I hope we won't be long.
If we have bad news, if the Orange Wonder is reelected, I don't know. I think I might move to Canada or something. Oh my God. I just can't imagine that. I really can't. Okay, guys, go vote. If you haven't voted yet, go vote. Thank you. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Lean to the Left video and that you found it interesting and informative. Please visit on a regular basis and check out our interviews with guests on topics that focus on progressive politics and the important social issues of our time. Now, our interview shows stream on Mondays with special episodes on Thursdays. And follow us on social media. Facebook at Bob Gaddy and the Lean to the Left podcast. Now, it's two. Bob Gaddy is one Facebook page, and the Lean to the Left podcast is a second Facebook page. Twitter at Lean to the Left 1, Instagram at Lean to the Left 1, TikTok at Lean to the Left, LinkedIn at Bob Gaddy, and YouTube at Lean to the Left. Now, I hope you'll support Lean to the Left as well so we can keep things going. Just click on the Donate tab at the top of the leantotheleft.net homepage and contribute by buying me a cup of coffee. That'll really help and would be much, much, much appreciated. Now, this is Bob Gaddy signing off for Lean to the Left. Thanks for sharing your time with us.